you ready for this.
Gonna be fun.
You will not stand in my way.
Frostborn. Hunger. This pleases me.
I do not fear you, mortal.
Your soul shall be mine.
Don't make me laugh.
Needs a brew? Oh, I do. Feel a shredding, baby. Let the battle begin.
Hello and welcome to the 36th episode of Trollin HGC, a Heroes of the Storm podcast focused on esports and a member of the Trolls.gg Entertainment Network. I'm your host, LiQuiuD, and I'm joined today as usual by Bahgz. How's it going, man?
Hey, what's going on, LiQuiuD?
Not much, not much. And we have a special guest tonight, Coach of GFE, CavalierGuest. How's it going?
I'm doing really well. It's been a really exciting week for me. It's, we had the the Creators of the Storm tournament this weekend, which I cast, which of course we're a part of as well.
Yep.
And it's just been, there's so much been going on in the community, despite the fact that we're on a break in theory, but there's still just a ton of content to be made. And I've been streaming a lot more, so that's been really fun.
Right, isn't it weird to hear people say we're on a break, and it's like, are we though? Because there's a lot going on. so weird to me.
They're on a break.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. They are on a break. All right. So before we get into it, Bahgz, you want to thank our Patreons since you put a whole lot of work into that?
Yeah. So, again, Trolls.gg has a Patreon at patreon.com/Trolls.gg. It's shared with the Nexus Trolls as well as the writers that write for the Trolls.gg website, as well as Creators of the Storm, which is the tournament we just put on this past weekend. All of that contributes to any of the content we put out there on the internet. Here's the Storm related. And I recently updated it with new stretch goals for the community to try and unlock, as well as a new reward tier for our patrons, which is the Chieftain reward tier, which you get at $10 a month. And so far, it's been very successful. We've had a couple of our patrons up their patronage, and we're up to 21 of $25 a month towards our first goal. And again, at $25 a month, we will guarantee you after show games with a priority on our patrons getting in them, but everyone is invited. And that will happen after every single show we do, which is Trollin HGC on Tuesday and the Nexus Trolls on Wednesday. LiQuiuD, I believe you have some sort of one ad.
No, I'm actually, I got to go through those.
Okay.
I got to go through those. We may still be hiring. We may not. I have a whole bunch of applications that my goal tomorrow is to get through all of them and contact all of the people that wanted to come and work with us. So,
great.
We'll have more news about that next week. And yeah, but this week we do want to thank our troll of the week, and it is Wait. Is it Zexrus? Yes, it is. It's Zexrus.
It is Zexrus, yes.
I couldn't remember if I remembered to change that or not, but thank you, Zexrus, for being our troll of the week this week. Always hanging out in chat. Always gotta.
He is the villain of the week, actually.
Yeah, that's true.
Curly mustache and everything, and the top hat and the dick dastardly laugh.
We needed a villain for this weekend, and he played it well. And he jumped on that grenade for the good of the tournament, and actually I think he did a great job doing it. He was willing to talk trash to anybody, and he did a good job for that. So thank you, Zexrus, for being our troll of the week. So Bahgz, I'm gonna assume that you have some questions that you would like to have CavalierGuest here.
Cav, feel free to deny to answer any of these questions if you are uncomfortable answering them. There's only a couple here, though. I know you were interviewed on the Nexus Trolls not too long ago, but I do want to kind of get an update on what's going on with Cav since he's become the coach of GFE. But before we do that, Twitch, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in Twitch chat. I will add them at the end. I'm only going to ask a couple in the essence of trying to make sure we have a hour-and-a-half long show, as we should. Now, Cav, for those of you who don't already know you or missed out in the interview that took place on the Nexus Troll, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
How do you? I mean, in myself in general, or myself as an esports personality.
However you would like to answer that.
If you want to fill us in with a little bit of background personally, that's fine. And if you want to talk about what got you in esports, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm going to start with this explanation by saying I'm a dilettante. I really like exploring new things. I think I can do math. I'm 34 years old. And to date in my life, so past 30, you just forget how old you are, for the record.
True story. True story.
Like you have to do math. But I just want to keep trying new things. So I've had 6 different careers at this point in my life, which is pretty unusual. Most people don't transition. I'm a high school dropout. I'm a high school dropout because my parents had a really ugly divorce. But I learned programming at a very young age from my father, so I've been a programmer. I was briefly a hypnotherapist. I'm a professionally certified ballroom dance instructor. That's how I met my wife. I was teaching ballroom at her college, and she took the class. So I've had just sort of a lot of different experiences in life. And, I started, a friend of mine was the first D&D Twitch streamer, Koibu. I grew up with him. We did Aikido together, and we played D&D together, obviously. And he actually had a concept called one-shots, and he would invite like viewers on, and his viewers would always die. Like they didn't know how to play D&D safely. So he got the idea of, well, what if I bring some experienced veteran D&D players on one day and show people like how it's done? So it was me and some other people that I know from growing up with Neil and playing D&D together a lot. My friend Rob, who I consider family, and we played D&D, and everyone at the end was like, they didn't die, guys. Like they made it through the adventure. They achieved the goal. And a bunch of people in chat was like, do you stream? Could you stream? Would you please stream? And I was playing a lot of Hearthstone at the time because it was new and it was fun. Like when Hearthstone first came out, it was like genuinely one of the most fun games I've ever played. And so I started playing Hearthstone 2 to 4 hours, 5 days a week, and I would stream it. And about, I don't know, a year into streaming Hearthstone, I offered to do a 24-hour stream, and my stream voted to watch me play Heroes of the Storm. And by the end of that Heroes of the Storm stream, I was in Hero League. So I played 24 hours straight of Heroes of the Storm. That was the first time I played Heroes of the Storm. That was the first time I'd played a MOBA of any kind. I think I played the original Defense of the Ancients, and I think I played one game of Heroes of New Earth because I was on a forum with the developer at the time, and they were asking for people to like test it. But I'd never really gotten into MOBAs, so that was my first time like really trying to actively play a MOBA. And 24 hours later, I was like, okay, this is fun. I'm gonna try and learn as much as I can about this game as possible, and I just started playing it. I think in the first 8 months. I had a stim pack for the first 8 months, but the first 8 months I played the game so much that I actually bought every single hero with gold.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Wow. So, I think it was like 6,000-ish games in the
my gosh.
8 months of playing it. I've just played a lot of Heroes of the Storm. It was really fun. I started talking to pro players, and people were like, well, why this? Why that? I started doing some strategy things. I wrote The Art of the Tank, which is incredibly popular and actually needs to be updated. But I started making content. People were interested in my content, so I kept making more of it, and now we're here.
I will say the Art of the Tank certainly helped me out a lot when I was trying to be the tank for our little chair league team, which I was but it certainly clarified a lot of things, and it was my go-to resource when trying to learn tanks that were in the meta at the time. So and it was a very light bulby moment when you wrote, you mentioned that like the tank is like when your team's doing the merc camp, you're not helping them do the merc camp, you're standing in the bush and you are the ward, so to speak. So I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
That took me a long time to grasp, especially in chair league. I was like, no, I can do this. I'm like, wait a minute. Maybe I don't need to do this.
Right.
So yes.
So
it's the little things.
Anyways, so with that being said, you were a big time content creator in the Heroes community, and you still are. You started out making content for GFE, but you are now the coach of their Heroes of the Storm HGC team. What's that transition been like?
It's been interesting because when you're just talking about strategy to people, you can do it even if you're doing the very, like a lot of times it's very abstract, but sometimes in like a very specific thing, like in this situation, this, like with this hero, this is how you optimally want to play. But when you're coaching a team, doesn't necessarily have to be about the game. Coaching in any context, and I've had experience with coaching because I've been a coach for competitive dance crews. I've been a coach for martial artists who were competitive in Aikido and Judo. I have that background. Coaching is about trying to bring the best out of your players consistently, making your players always be mentally invested in their practice, because the way you practice is the way you're going to end up playing. And all of that is the social side of, like, that's in many ways it's a social skill, like inspiring people to work really hard. It has nothing to do with what you're actually playing. It doesn't matter. So, I mean, I had that experience, so I pulled on that, but also doing it, I've never done it over the internet before, which I think is a little bit of a different situation, because it's like, you don't get to see facial expressions. You don't know exactly how invested people are in what you're saying. It's like a more difficult thing to hit the metrics, and you really want to try to think up, and then you want to think up quantitative things that the team, like your players are doing. Like, this is something you need to improve. You want to give them goals that they're working towards that are specific and achievable, and it's actually a lot more work in that sense, because I'm like, well, if they want to, like, let's say that you have an aggressive team and they want to play the game looking for picks, not aggressively, and you want more of a macro focus on the game. Are there the goals they should be setting to, like, make the picks matter in the macro sense, or should you be training them to be more of a macro team? That's something the team and I have talked a lot about. It's been difficult in a lot of ways, just because they don't all agree, even among themselves, which is like the optimal approach to the game. And it's really important that everyone's on the same page. And then you have other things like calm discipline, when to say what, like if you're responsible for someone in a lane, do you call if they're missing, things like that. And that's like more of a linguistic language aspect to it. Again, nothing to do with Heroes of the Storm. So yeah.
So would you say that, like, coming from content creation and going into coaching, were there hurdles? I mean, you said you had experience coaching, but were there hurdles coaching that you did not anticipate that caught you off guard, that you now have to tackle regularly that you didn't expect to?
I don't think so. I think I did a lot of work to prep for the idea of being a coach. I had my first interview before Kath and K1 were added to the team. That's when GFE first floated the idea of me coaching the team. Yeah. So that was 6 months before I actually ended up becoming the coach. And in that 6 months, I was like, well, what would it involve being a coach? So I went and looked. I went and studied some law coaches, as an example, because
that is the example.
Yeah. So nothing really came up that I wasn't anticipating. I think it's just the only thing to me that was in some way surprising is the pace of improvement. My team is getting better every single day. They work really hard during scrims. I make sure they work really hard during scrims. But sometimes, like our first week, some of the stuff that we had worked on specifically happened in our first set of games.
Oh, really?
I was like, why didn't you guys stick to the plan? Why didn't you do what you said you were going to do and what we practiced? And they were like, we got stressed, we forgot. And so it takes a long time to develop these really good habits that you're trying to instill in these players. And I was just surprised at how slow the process is, even though I always knew it was sort of an ongoing thing that you had to keep consistent with.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. All right. So this isn't going to be a long interview, but I do have a couple more questions for you. So you guys just missed out on the Western Clash. It came down to that last weekend, and I know had you probably beaten LFM, it would have came down to map score, and it would have been really close. Can you think of one thing that you personally would have done differently that might have made the difference? Can you think of give an example to Twitch chat, I guess, the listeners and viewers?
If we'd actually beaten LFM, we would have gone because we would have had a better match score. So not beating LFM is really sort of the main reason we didn't go to Clash. And I mean, I struggle with that a little bit because the night before, our shot caller, Michael Udall, broke up with his girlfriend. He posted about that on Twitter a couple days later. He talked about it already, so it's sort of public knowledge. And he was just very distracted during that set. And like on the Dragonshire game, there was a moment where they were like he was trying to prevent an invasion of our siege, and he just like went in 1v4 and just died. And he like from that moment, I knew he was distracted, and he wouldn't I didn't know why, and they don't have a lot of time to talk to the team in between games.
Right.
So I was just like trying to keep everyone focused. That was the biggest setback for us. And when we played HHE, who ended up going over us, that was a 3-1 series, and the one was we attempted a cheese we knew would never work again because they were changing Volskaya, and we'd practiced it, so we wanted to just like get it out there, and then it didn't work and we lost. So it was 3-1. It was not a close series at all. We played much better than HHE. And it's just kind of unfortunate that, you have that one event, and that's the nature of a league system, right?
Right.
You have an ongoing weekly competition. Whoever's better at the end of that 8 weeks or 5 weeks, 8 matches, is the team that gets in the top and ends up going.
Right.
And we didn't do our best every week, mostly for personal reasons, and had nothing to do with our gameplay.
I hear you. Well, listen, I'll tell you what. I just want to I want to throw some shade at Hero real quick because he's in chat, and you heard it here first. Cavalier said that if Michael Udo wasn't distracted, they would have bodied LFM that week. So Hero, you suck. That's what he said. Okay. Oh, now,
to be fair to listeners who don't hang out in Twitch chat, Hero's a friend of the show. Yeah, this is more about just giving him a hard time.
Just picking on him. Cav, can you give us your best guess for how the team's kind of projecting come mid-season brawl? Top 3 teams from NA get to go. So, well, I said it's sorry. Top 2. I'm brain farting right now. It's top 2, and then if NA wins the Clash, top 3.
Yes.
Right.
There you
got
go.
it. So top
2.
So top 2.
It's 2 from each major region, plus 2 additional teams from the winning regions from the clashes. That's 12 teams total. Yep. And then the 2 best amateur teams as determined by their own little mini clash.
The two wild card teams from the minor regions.
Yeah.
So, how, I guess like what I mean to say is, how is GFE projecting for the second half of phase 1 leading up to mid-season brawl? That's how I should have worded that.
I don't know, to be honest, because there's a lot of factors that go into it. Obviously, I think people pretty solidly think Tempo and Freedom are currently the top 2 teams in North America, and I think that's justified. Taking either one of them down overall would be very difficult. And it's going to come down to consistency, because we're going to have to beat every other team and them, because we're so far down currently, because the results from phase 1 and phase 2 are correlated together to decide who goes to mid-season.
Correct.
Right.
Which means that we have to perform extremely well to be one of the top 2 teams, and it would have to be one of the top 2 because there's no way NA is winning Clash and getting that third tag along. That's just not happening.
To be fair to you guys, you were only 2 games behind in the standings to Freedom. You're sitting at 3 and 4 versus Freedom at 5 and 2, and Team 12 at 5 and 2. And I'm again being rude and wearing my Freedom jersey while I have a representative from another team on the show. But it's the week before the Clash, so I need to provide support where I can. So it's not. Yes, you guys do have to perform really well, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. I mean, we can all look back towards, I guess. Well, I can't think of a team that made a giant climb last year because No Tomorrow did it post midseason brawl when the standings reset. So never mind. But it's within the realm of possibilities. So
it is in the realm of possibilities. I think we're capable of doing, and really, I think from my perspective, it's does my team want it? If they're willing to put in the work and actually just grind and really think about the game, do the replay review, they're willing to put in the thought, I think is the thing. Heroes of the Storm is not that mechanical a game when comparing it to other MOBAs, but there's a lot of decision making, a lot of thought that goes into it. And you definitely not only have to have those thoughts and have them at the right time and like really be crisp with your decision making, but then communicate really well. And all of that takes practice. All of those are skills that you can learn. So are they willing to do that? If yes, then they can probably get COP 2. If they're not willing to really put in the work, or if they're just coasting, they're not going to make it. And, they're in charge of setting their goals, and I'm in charge of helping them achieve them. So we'll see what they want to do.
So
ignore the question number 1 that I have in there. I just have to strike through. I have to figure that.
Let me ask you kind of a follow up. Because I'm not the Team Freedom believer that I'm definitely in the minority about Team Freedom when it comes to Team Freedom. But if you look at the standings, right, like Bahgz mentioned, it's you're only 2 games back. The number 2 and number 3 are both tied at 5-2, with just map score really differentiating them right now. And realistically, I think Team Freedom's they're very inconsistent. There are weeks where it seems like they have it going on, and then there's weeks that they don't. And I feel like, man, I'm losing my train. I feel like consistency is going to be the key to winning, or at least being in the top 2. So if you like, is your focus on the consistency as much, or is it on fixing either macro or picks, or, you know, deciding what kind of team you are? I guess that's really where my question is going. Is consistency the issue right now, or is it the team identity that's the issue?
I would say it's both. I would say that our play and even our drafting was somewhat inconsistent. And this is one for a variety of reasons. Like, yeah, I can be like, in this game, this was the problem. In this game, this was the problem. Because I, you know, spend 7 hours a day analyzing their play, at least 7 hours a day analyzing their play 5 days a week. So I can always be like, it was this, it was this, it was this. And it's very obvious to me. And it's never any one thing. This is a very team-based game. Some games it was the draft, and it was like we didn't prep enough, or we didn't believe in our drafting enough, and we just like pick something. Sometimes people would get nervous and wouldn't do what they were supposed to do, or they would forget what the plan was. You know, some days we had a breakup, and our shot caller was just totally out of sorts.
Right.
And I think that at least 2 of my players are pretty emotional people. So if they're losing or if they're winning, that's a big impact on them. And
yes.
it's just the way it is. And I think consistency is the first thing that any team should strive for. You always want to be able to do the minimum. Like, you always want to establish what the minimum level of performance is, and always achieve it no matter what. If the enemy team's better than you, then they're better than you, but at least you didn't misplay or make a mistake on your end that allowed them to win. And then it's, you know, starting to evaluate what is more important. Even if you prefer like just running at people and trying to kill them, what is actually more important? What is actually going to win you games? And establishing that, and then having everyone agree and be on the same page, or just be willing to play that way. Even if they don't agree, everyone just being willing to play that way.
Right.
And so everyone is doing the same thing and executing in the same way is really important. And it's a very difficult thing to achieve. It's really difficult to get everyone on a team to agree on how to play the game. And it's actually the number one reason that roster swaps kind of tend to happen, because people disagree about how to play the game, and they try and they try and they try, and they decide that they're right, and they'd rather take that perspective elsewhere where it's appreciated.
Okay.
All right, so Twitch chat's got a couple of questions for you here, Cav. The first one is, feel free, again, if you're uncomfortable answering a question, don't answer it. Are coaches signed to a contract for a certain amount of time, or is it like a week-to-week gig, or does it depend on the coach and the team?
I would say it depends on the coach and the team and the org, because, of course, I'm being paid by GFE, not by the team itself. So it just really varies a lot. I know there's like 1 month contracts, and I don't think anyone's on a week-to-week as far as I know, but there's 1 month assessments. There's like sometimes there's assessment periods where it's like a 3 month assessment, and if you don't work out, you're just gone. And then I think a lot of the contracts are 6 months or a year. So it's like either the full HGC season or the HGC season up to MSB. And if you do or don't qualify for MSB, people will reevaluate. There's a lot of variation, and it really just comes down to what the org is comfortable with.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Robin, for that question. Now, Lord Boo has a second question, and he says, what happened to Team 12? Why did they fall behind Tempo and Freedom? Coming into this season, everyone expected them to kind of be after the changes they made to their roster, to kind of be the Dignitas of North America, and that's not the case.
I honestly don't. It seems to me like the Team 12's primary problem may just be drafting. They get in their head that certain ideas work, and they just stick with them, and then they don't work, and they just lose games. But they don't lose games to people who are much worse at decision making than them. So their drafts are like good, but not great, I would say. And that allows better teams to beat them and worse teams still get run over, but the games look closer than they should be. Also, Team 12 is just like, I think their experience at Gold Club had an interesting effect on them, where they scrimmed KSV or MVP Black almost exclusively, apparently, at Gold Club. So that honestly gave them a lot of practice and a lot of goals to hit about what they could do, but it also really hurt their morale because they never won any of their scrims. I think they actually didn't win a single game in scrims. Maybe Black, maybe it was like 1 or 2. I don't remember, but that's the reason that like their late game decision making was so bad at that event, and their confidence was so low. And I think that may have had a lasting effect on them. And that's one of the things that I think you really need a coach for. Actually, and they don't have one. Is when your morale is down on a team and their confidence is down, you want to like remind them of like what they have accomplished and bring them back to focusing on, even if that's an experience where you lost, you can use that experience to be better. You can use it to become a better player, to become a better team together. And it just feels like they don't have that leadership anywhere on the team to have that refocus happen.
I think that's a really articulate way to describe kind of what we're seeing, and that's very insightful, because I don't think a lot of Reddit and Twitch or even LiQuiuD and I would have kind of come to that conclusion. So
I mean, I've been harping on Yipboss that they need to get a coach for like months now. We said the same thing about GFE when they first said, yeah, we're looking for a coach last year, right towards the end of last year, whenever that was, and your name was in the running for it back then. Everybody thought you should do it then.
I think the players on that team actually don't want a coach is the thing, because Roll20 reached out to me pre-BlizzCon to potentially bring me on as a coach for Roll20 for BlizzCon. And apparently everyone was for it except the players.
Which I get. I understand to a degree, but as a person that's been involved in competitive sports for a lot of my life, you need a coach. Like and not necessarily to fix mechanical issues, but like you need a coach for all the other reasons. The situation you described in Gold Club is a great situation of what a coach could have changed for them, assuming the coach was there. There's lots of little things that a coach brings to a team that are just like players don't always necessarily realize they're missing those things. And it's one of my big pet peeves about the league as a whole. At this point, I feel like every team should have a coach. I realize that costs money and it's difficult to do, but
well, I think it's interesting too, because in League you're required to have a coach, and I think if Blizzard wants to make Heroes of the Storm a serious esport that's competitive with League and Dota, they're going to have to eventually add that as a requirement. And I think they know that. They're just waiting for more money to come into the scene, so it's more tenable.
Yeah, which makes sense.
My and during the off season, one of my requests or like goals or hopes for Blizzard to establish for this season, and it didn't happen, but I thought it was realistic, was kind of like a 6-man spot on the team that could be used either for a coach or an active sub that just kind of either get subs in and out in between matches, but we didn't get that. So all right, LiQuiuD, I see we've got 2 more questions. Do you want to tackle those?
So Malorum asks, do you hear a difference in the quality of the comms during HGC games? Or more specifically, when the games count, do you hear a difference in how they operate due to higher stress, or when it's not as critical, or let's say they think it's going to be an easy game, are they more relaxed on comms?
I'm only allowed to be on comms during the draft. I'm not allowed to be on comms during the actual game itself, so it's hard to answer that question. I will say that there's a difference in the quality of comms between teams. Like if we are scrimming a team where the team sort of expects to win and they know they're better, they are more relaxed. And when they're scrimming, like we're scrimming like tempo or freedom, there's a lot more focus in some ways, because they feel like it's more important. And I've worked really hard to eliminate that and actually make comms similar across all the teams. It doesn't matter who we're playing. We should always be playing our best. And it's difficult. It's just something that has been extremely stressful. And I've been told that like Biggie, for instance, is much more hype. This is the way the team puts it on comms in real games. He's louder. and I imagine that all of them are like a little different, but I really hope that they're not. I really would rather their comms during scrims and their comms during real games were the same, because the way you practice is the way you're going to play in the long run.
Right. Well, and that's always the trick, right? How do you get your team to treat everything like it's real and it counts for something? Because that's, as you practice that way, you play that way. That's just how it works. So yeah, I get it. And a follow-up question, since Malorum's also asking about that. So there's no, I'm not going to phrase it exactly how he said it, but do the teams not save copies of the comms so that you can listen to them while you're watching the playback of the replay later on? Is it not available to you?
I guess I could have one of the players record. I never thought about that, to be honest, because I honestly feel like the day of is not when you win the game. Like, you win the game because of your prep.
Okay.
Whether that's your scrims. And so I'm focused very hard on making sure their prep is as good as possible. And we actually even, like, going over the games, the actual games where mistakes were made, we very rarely play those comps, like the comps we play in competitive, for the first time, like the day of the draft. That doesn't happen.
Right.
Even the draft has a lot of variables. We sort of understand what our hero pools are, what kind of comps we're going to draft. And so I work on fixing the mistakes that we have with the comps and scrims, so those mistakes don't happen in the competitive games. I guess I could have one of the players. I'm wondering what the value of that would be.
I think that's the real question, right? Is there value in doing that? Or is it just added, like, does it get in the way, right? That's ultimately, I think, what you would have to determine. But then the question is, how do you determine that without doing it the first time and seeing if that helps or hurts?
I don't know. Let me see. Let me do it in phase 2 one time, and I'll get back to you.
Awesome. Okay. And then
we're making a difference, LiQuiud.
We are, right? Well, I'm curious because from an outsider's perspective, it's like you can look at the replay. I mean, any of us can look at the replay, right? Most of the replays end up on masterleague.net. You can download it and you can go look at it and try to figure out what worked and what didn't work. But when you're looking at a replay, knowing, in my opinion, and this is not as an HGC coach, but as just knowing what I know about other things, having an idea what they were thinking at the time might make sense. But then if the issue's not, you guys should have engaged here 15 seconds earlier, or you shouldn't have engaged here, doesn't matter, right? That's the real question. And I think that's something that even probably without the recording, you can decide, like, are our issues our macro play and when we're making decisions, or are our issues, something different? Because if it's macro play, I could see the recording helping you more. Maybe they thought about the play the movement you wanted them to do, and dismissed it on comms because of some other reason that you may not know, because, right? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I'm gonna record. I'll have them record their first game.
Cool.
Comms, and I'll listen to them and see if it actually makes a significant difference in the post-game analysis. They're usually pretty good about remembering what they said, is the thing, or what they didn't say in many cases.
Awesome. And that ultimately that would be what you need anyway, right? Like, you don't need to, you're not looking for it to rub their nose and like, no, that's not what you told me you said, right? It's more, do you remember the reasons you made these decisions?
Yeah.
All right, Lord Boo asks, when can we expect your next guide?
B-Kid is going to Korea on the 8th. And he's going to be gone for like a week. So we won't have scrims for a week. So I'll probably try to use that week to get my guides up to date.
Awesome.
Publish a new one. No promises, but like that's when I'll have time, and I'll try really hard.
So, but now that we know he's going on the 8th to Korea, and that's a week without scrims, isn't that the week before you guys get back into action?
No, it's 2 weeks before. So
Okay.
There's a break after the clash, right after Eastern
we'll have
Clash.
We'll have a full week of scrims.
Okay.
To get back into shape.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. I think I'm just checking chat. I think that's it. Yep. Cool. Let's
dive into
some news.
Tonight on the Trolls.gg podcast network, Trollin HGC proudly presents Heroes Esports News, Notes, and Drama with your hosts, LiQuid and Bahgz.
All right, so just a little bit of news that we're going to cover real quick. One of the things that did happen last week was Ripple Esports picked up an ANZ team, which I know this is really minor news because it's ANZ of all places. And not only is it ANZ, but it's ANZ Open Division. So it's a really small news item. But it's important for us because I like seeing more and more teams get sponsored, even if it is a small sponsorship and it is, you know, Open Division and ANZ. And nothing may come of it, but kudos to them for getting sponsored. They used to be Deathwing Reign Supreme, so I actually have seen them play. They came pretty close to qualifying for Premier League. I think they missed it by 1 or 2 losses, if I remember correctly. So they're not far out. They should do well in Open Division. But they did pick up that team. And then, sorry guys, I can't say ANZ. It's not going to happen. I mean, I just did, but no, it's not going to happen. Also, HGC ANZ started last night on Twitch. They played a couple of games on Twitch. It's a really weird way they're doing it. They're not showing all the games on stream. They're only showing some of the games on stream. So check out what you can. That's over on twitch.tv/Blizzard_ANZ. Skimmy was casting last night. It was a good time. I watched some of them. I ended up watching most of them as VODs. But it was fun to watch. So definitely check that out. It helps fill the... I want to say the drought of HGC, but like if you watch all the HGC stuff on right now, there's not a drought. Like we had China, Open Division, EU, Open Division, NA, ANZ. Like I could have turned my TV on Saturday and left it on most of the weekend and had something going on. So yeah, it's crazy how much there is. Dorms, yep, dorms. That comes down lower, Rubber Ducky, but yeah, dorms.
That's this weekend coming up, but yeah.
I'm total digression. I'm amazed how many people sign up for dorms and expect to win, because several of the top dorm teams every year consist of like pro or former pro players or potential pro players, and they grind the game like crazy. I just like it's signing up for fun, great. Like you just like want someone to play like. And they have to play you because it's a competition. But the people who sign up and have no chance of winning, but actually think they have a chance of winning, blows my mind. Sorry.
No, it's actually so it's actually a good point, right? I don't follow dorms as closely as I follow other things, but I see similar things in Open Division, especially in NA Open Division, where I'm like, you'll watch some of the first round teams and you're like, well, why? How did you guys see this going in your heads? Like, I feel bad for thinking that, but I'm watching. I'm like, I'm happy that you're trying to do this. That's awesome that you're trying to do this. But do you play anywhere else? Are you scrimming? Like, where did you think you guys were gonna get with this? So yes, I understand completely what you're saying. And yeah, it's a thing. It is a thing. So, all right, you want to talk about some results, Bahgz?
Yeah, let's dive into the results.
It's a 1-for-1 trade. It's a 1-for-1 trade as we once again have the Dragon Blade used on the side of Genji. He's tried that hit, dashes out, sail yellow.
That was just about the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life.
It's a dance party and you're invited.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to HGC Western Clash.
All right, so you know what? I want to flip this to here, and we're gonna talk some China. Once I find China, here's China. All right, there we go. I got the
giant thing on the globe.
No, I gotta find the right tab, man. I gotta find the right tab. All right,
it's on the other side of the Pacific Ocean.
Thanks, buddy. I'm aware of that part. So China going through their stepladder playoffs, some really interesting games. Starting in the first game, Time Flow ended up beating RPG 3-1. Beyond the game, then 3-0 Time Flow. And then 3-1 Sunny Lion. looking a little bit more like the Beyond the Game I was expecting.
I thought for a second there, I was like, all right, it's it. They're,
right?
You know, they're on
they're
fire.
back.
They're picking up some momentum. They're going to go to the no.
Then they ran into Start Over again, and it was like, not so much. So they got beat by Start Over again 3-1, and then the one beat Start Over again 3-2. That was actually a really good set. If you haven't seen it,
insane series.
That was that was a great set today. And so tomorrow we have CE against the one, and then winner of that playing Super Perfect Team to determine the final seeding for the HGC Eastern Clash.
So essentially, China will be sending the one challenge, which is CE, and SPT, which is Super Perfect Team, to the Clash. It's just a matter of determining who's going to be the 1 seed, 2 seed, and 3 seed from China at the Clash. So
this was interesting to me. I kind of like this whole all 8 teams are step laddering to get those spots. Regular season makes it easier, but it doesn't guarantee you first place.
It's kind of cool, but so there's two schools of thought there, right? Like, it's kind of cool from like a viewer's perspective, but it kind of negates all the hard work and the team that was consistently the best team throughout a season if they happen to show up and have one bad day. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that is the struggle with that.
But
right?
if they're really a good team, they only have to have a bad day for like one set, and they still go. It's just in second place instead of first.
This is true.
I don't know. There's a lot of advantages to the Chinese system. There's a lot of weirdness about it too, because I think Heroes of the Storm is so draft dependent that their best of 2 every week is questionable, like highly questionable.
Is it though? Well, let's dig into that, because I actually really, really appreciate the Chinese system.
Okay, we got to go over this though, because we have to explain to our viewers, because I know a lot of people don't watch China. Every team plays every other team just the way it does in normal HGC, but it's a best of 2, and you get 1 point for a tie. Each team gets 1 point if it's 1-1. You get, I think, 3 points.
Yep.
For a win, and you get
0 for a loss. Or no, it's negative.
It's negative. You get negative points for a loss for like if you get 2-0'd. And then the points are what's used to determine seeding. But I feel like Heroes of the Storm is so draft dependent, and it's so that any team can beat the other team with the right draft. Also, one of the advantages, like going back and forth, one of the pros is that there's a big debate about what is stronger, first pick or second pick. And in China, one team gets first pick, and then they get map pick. So it's balanced that way. Each team gets first pick once, each team gets map pick once.
Right.
So it's a little bit more dynamic. I almost wish they would add additional map bans for China, since they don't have to really worry about the whole pool being utilized. Like, have 4 map bans, like 2.
That would be interesting. I kind of like that.
Yeah, like if you're gonna do the system, like embrace it, and do some more stuff with it. But I just don't know if you can actually determine the overall better team from a best of 2.
Well, but so let's use the problem is we do a best of 5, which lends credence to that. But in a number of tournaments, we do best of 3s, right? Even the first round of the Western Clash is going to be a best of 3. And I guess my argument would be the difference between a best of 2 and a best of 3 is not enough such that I think you can truly determine the winner in a best of 3 either. I think you either have to embrace the best of 2 or do a best of 5. Like, the in-between, I don't feel like makes a big enough difference there.
Well, I was just going to say, in Australia, their league systems is set up to be similar to China. Except they do best of 3s, but it is a double round robin scheduling format. So,
right. So it's
similar, but they don't go by point. It's going to have actual like win losses. And so not going off a point table. I don't believe
in the best of 2, right? If all teams are balanced, let's just pretend all teams are balanced for some reason.
Okay.
We know that not to be true, but let's just pretend for a minute. Or let's say the top 6 is. You'll always have your bottom 2. Let's just say the top 6 is relatively balanced. You should see a lot of 1-1 results then. If it's truly draft dependent.
Yeah, you should see a lot of 1-1 results.
But we don't see that in China.
I mean, we see a fair...
There's a fair number, yes.
I think like 50% of the matches are 1-1 results.
And most of those are the mid-tier teams, though, right? If you look at SPT, they're 25-3. right? So it's
yes, that's true. They don't have any losses. They have 3 ties and 11 wins.
Right. And if you go down another step, right? Challenge, I can't call them that. CE is also doing relatively well with only the 2 losses and the 3 ties. So it's like that middle tier where you really run into the lots of ties and lots of 1-1s, right? So yeah, in a all teams being equal, right? I think you end up with that. But if we were to apply this to, let's say, man, it's really hard right now because all 3, both NA and EU came down to like the last weekend a little bit.
Yeah, they really did.
But if we apply it to last year, right? If we applied to last year, you would have gotten similar result where you had the top teams and then you had the middle teams. This part is like blowing my mind because it was so close. So maybe best of 5 is the best structure. I don't know. I feel like there's a place for the best of 2.
It's convenient for the viewer. I just don't think it provides the most competitive.
Yeah, that's my thing. Like,
and the ultimate result.
It is so much better for the viewer.
Oh yeah,
you know exactly how many games you're gonna end up watching. It's better for production because you know exactly, like, if the average of a game is 30 minutes including draft, then it's like 1 hour per set, done, really good. And your overages won't be like massive overages the way they can be in
right?
3 13-minute games versus 5 30-minute games. Like that range is enormous.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe we should consider it for the region. Maybe we should add 2 map bans, do a best of 2 for every region.
Well, what if the other place I think this really applied was what if we looked at doing this for the beginning of, so like BlizzCon 2017, we had that first week where everybody had to play everybody anyway. This would have been a better system in my opinion there.
I think you would have ended up with very similar results. So I think that's a fair statement.
Right. And that's more specifically, that's what I'm looking at. When you end up in a round robin where everybody's going to play everybody, a best of 2, I think, gives you what you need to complete that, and doesn't, it, like you said, production's much smoother. The time commitment like really works well. So yeah. All right, let's move on unless anybody wants to add anything else about China.
I think we beat China with a
China's dead.
Within a life. Yeah.
All right, China's done. Just gonna pull up our rankings here. All right, so currently showing the overall rankings for KR, NA, and EU. We had a couple of games in Korea. I'm happy to say that I believe I got both of these scores right, or got close. But Tempest did sweep Blossom, and KSV did sweep Miracle, both 3-0s. Which
that makes Korea, by that no surprises there.
Right.
That makes Korea, by the way, the only consistent region.
Yes.
Where the better team always beat the worst team. Last year, EU was the only consistent region. Now Korea is the only consistent region.
Right. Well, and what I really like about all of this is Tempest is still sitting on top 7-0. Remember this, Bahgz. Remember this moment.
Yes.
They dropped 2 games in the entire season so far.
Right. 1 to
Ballistics and 1 random game to Feliz, because it turns out Tracer Malfurion is really strong.
Little bit.
I've already had to wear my Tempest Tempest on my forehead for a show, so I will remember Tempest's Phase 1 Part 1 of 2018 very well. But I still believe in KSV, and I'm probably going to make a really poor bet for the Eastern Clash.
Oh, the Eastern Clash is where I'm going to take advantage of you, buddy. So.
Oh gosh, we're going to have to edit that one out.
I actually think KSV is going to play much better than we've seen from them so far, because they acknowledged that there was a meta shift in which heroes are doing which roles, and they swapped their roster around to accommodate it. And I think that with that change, they're going to be playing much better.
I would agree with that statement. I think, though, I'm torn. KSV should have done better, but it was clear that they were struggling when things shifted.
See, I don't think they should have done better. I think they're actually that's exactly where they belong, in 3rd.
Oh, if you look at their games, this is where they belong. But leading into after BlizzCon coming into week 1, I felt like they should have been number 1 going into the season until I saw them play.
See, I don't think so.
Really?
I really don't. No, because Tempest has always been the best team fight team, and Ballistics has always been like arguably the best macro team in the world. So they had, and KSV was always like sort of on the line. They were like, we do some of this, we do some of that. There's some flexibility. I think it's one of those teams where like Kyocha is a really thoughtful player. He plays Abathur really, really well, and part of that reason is he really understands macro. And Rich likes to run at people. And as long as you're you restrict yourself to maps, and there's the meta like supports that, that's fine. But with the changes to the way towers work, the way minion waves work, the way objectives work, macro became a lot more important.
Yes.
In a lot of ways in the pro scene, and it's just never been KSV's strength. Having a really strong offlaner who's really responsive to waves became really important. And that's never been Rich's strength as an offlaner. And so they were probably going to be worse than Ballistics. They'll probably lose to Ballistics just because of macro, which is in fact what happened in their set.
Yep.
And in order to be worse at macro and really still dominate people, your team fights have to be ridiculously better. Like, you have to outdraft your opponent and have such a better team fight that you can guarantee an instant pick on anyone at the start of a fight, and then get more kills and just roll over people, just steamroll them. Which is exactly what Tempest has been doing in every game against everyone.
No, that's absolutely what they've been doing.
So Tempest was the story with Tempest, and they were traditionally, and they made some changes. They picked up some of the scraps from Mighty, and I shouldn't say it that way, but
no, you should not say it that way.
They picked up the good players from Mighty, and then the scraps
literally
quit the game.
Good. They picked up good from Mighty.
I'm glad someone got that.
And it's anyways, consistent. They were consistently the most inconsistent team in Korea. Like you said, mechanically they were the strongest team. When everything was clicking, they just looked otherworldly, because they could just beat anybody. But it wasn't. They could never always. It was always a struggle to get them to harness their good days, right? And kind of like I said this before. It's Tempest was. It's a very a substantially better version of like the old Naventic roster, which was like the DirecTV and cable commercials. Like, are we going to get DirecTV Tempest today, or are we going to get cable Tempest today? Like, and this entire phase, they have consistently been DirecTV Tempest. So, shout outs to them in that regard. I guess I am still holding a major reservation on that squad until they prove it. I mean, that's how they won their world championship in 2016. Was everything was clicking on all cylinders for them in that tournament, and that's why they won it.
But what do they have to win to make you a believer? Is it Eastern Clash? Is it Mid-Season Brawl?
If they win the Clash, I'll accept that they're the best team in Korea, and maybe not. I still won't say that they're better than Dig, but I'll say they're the best team.
Well, that's
Korea.
what Mid-Season Brawl is for.
Yeah, if they win Mid-Season Brawl, they're the best team in the world. Like,
obviously, yes, I think that validates that. But I will say that they are. I will. I'm not. 5 weeks does not make. They beat KSV. I don't know. I still think we'll see.
Somebody clip this, because they're gonna win Mid-Season Brawl, and Bahgz is gonna tell me no. KSV Black won BlizzCon. They're not the best until they win BlizzCon. So somebody clip this for me so that I can remind him.
I actually think in order of competitiveness, it goes Gold Club World Championships, Mid-Season Brawl, BlizzCon. So if you're the best team in the world if you win Gold Club, but BlizzCon, the format's just not as good.
No,
you have to acknowledge that the format is not as competitive. Mid-Season Brawl and Western Clash or Gold Club have the most competitive formats. Those are the series where the best team is actually decided for the year. Like, you have one at the middle of the year, one at the end of the year, and BlizzCon is like this weird. Yeah, Blizzard makes the game and hosts it, so it gets a lot of attention, but no one considers it the most competitive tournament.
Right.
At least not in like the professional scene.
I would agree with that. I would completely agree with that. But then my problem is I have to admit to KSV Black being the best team, and I don't think they are. So
Well, last year they were the best team.
last year they were, yeah, last year without a doubt they were the best year.
End of the year, last year they were the best team.
But then mid-season brawl, I think Tempest wins.
Lord Vu throwing shade at me. You're probably right, dude, but I'm sticking with it. I still think KSV is going to do better than Tempest at the Eastern. I'll worry about that next week.
And Nabby and CavalierGuest are listening to us basically say that Korea is winning mid-season brawl. So, what are you gonna do?
I think it's going to be a Tempest versus Dig finals if the current trends continue at mid-season brawl. I think that's a fair assessment.
I would like to see that. Actually, that would be the final I would pick as of today. Yeah. Let's jump into EU. Nothing's changed. All the teams are set. Dig sitting on top. In fact, while we do this, I think I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna let some Twitch clips play that Bahgz has pulled together for you guys. So since we're going over EU and NA currently, what do you guys think? Do you think something's out of place? Do you think is Dig really the team that should be there at number 1? Should it be someone else?
How is that? Wait, is that a real question? Did we just ask
no,
that?
no, I did just ask that. Yes, I did indeed just ask that. Yes. Not based on just their performance, right? Like, all right, let me ask you differently. Fnatic seemed to struggle. Method seemed to find theirself about, 2 weeks into it? Because they struggled at the beginning of the season. That's where they got their losses. So is it a matter of Dig is really unstoppable, or because they lost to Zealots, or is it a matter of they were on when they needed to be on and they continue to stay at the front?
Every team is going to have problems with consistency, especially if they don't have a coach to always keep them accountable. And Dig just didn't play their best. Not taking anything away from Zealots. Zealots played really well in their match against Dig. Just from looking at the drafts, you can tell how many hours of prep went into those drafts, because Dig did the same style of drafting that they've been doing, and Zealots did near perfect counter picks, right? Yep. They obviously spent hours. I can tell you that just going over the bans and the first round of picks up to the second bans on a per map basis takes about an hour of prep if you're really working on it. And then you do that the week before your matches, and then you practice that opener over and over and over again on different maps against different teams to try and make sure you're getting the comps that you want, and like what are the variations that we have to practice. And that's even more practice. Then that's one map, multiply that out by multiple maps, right? And you have to sort of think, are we going to get first pick or are we going to get second pick? How does that affect our order? Are we going to do a completely different comp if we have second pick?
Right.
It's obvious that Zealots put a ton of work in to their match with Dig, and it's obvious that Dig didn't put anywhere near that level of work in. They did the same things that they'd been doing that were very successful. They didn't take the match very seriously, which is a very big risk to ever do that. But Wubby is far and away the best offlaner in EU. He's considered the smartest drafter in EU. So 2-1 right there. And when Wubby was on Fnatic, he was considered the best offlaner in EU.
Right.
It's not like this is just because he's on Dignitas and they're winning. Even when he was on the other teams, he was still considered. Poik is arguably the top mechanical player in EU. He's certainly the best tracer. Everyone would say he's the best tracer. And of course, in a meta that was dominated by a tracer, Malfurion, it's not surprising. Xaylia has been very good on support. JPL is sometimes thought of as the best tank in EU. He's you can say he's tied with Breeze. That's the worst thing you can say. So in 3 positions, they have the best player in their region for their role. You can't underestimate a team like that. You can't say that they're being overhyped. That's insane. Their roster is so stacked.
Dig has it's funny. They have notoriously been known as kind of the most mechanically strong team in EU. Even last year, you could make that argument, where Fnatic was the best at drafting and macro. Now, Dig took a big chunk out of their biggest rival in Fnatic when they took their drafter and solo laner in Wubby, and I think that made a huge difference. So it's just. That's the best way to put it, is a team that was already mechanically really, really good got better at drafting and even better mechanically by picking up Poik and Wubby. So And it's just things are clicking right now. As long as I think the motivation stays there, I've been saying it since even before the season started. Like, Dig's going to be really, really good. So there's nothing. I guess the whole reason what you brought this up, I'm assuming LiQuiuD, is you wanted to take a look at the standings and say, is there anything here that surprises us? Right?
Yes. Yeah.
And the biggest thing is looking at both regions. Zealots and Team 12, I think, would be even Heroes Hearth to a degree would be the biggest surprises. Now we expected Team 12 to be sitting on top of the table, or at least I did. I didn't expect Zealots to be. I mean, I'd have to go back to my preseason predictions, but I think I expected LiQuiuD to finish 4th, if I remember correctly.
You did. That's correct.
And they just missed out on that. And then you know what it is? You can pull up Liquipedia real quick. Zealots, and you forget, but Zealots also beat Fnatic earlier in the season.
Yeah.
Like, so Zealots, the Giants killers, apparently. Like, they have taken down Fnatic and Dig. The teams they lost to were Method, Tricked, and LiQuiuD. So their direct competition in the going towards the Clash they lost to, but they managed to beat the big two. So that is why they're going. That was the big surprise to me. And then with Heroes Hearth, I didn't expect. I guess you could flip Gale Force and Heroes Hearth, and that's. I mean, I expected Space Station to be the 4th best team, but I didn't expect Heroes Hearth to do so well right off the bat. So
I didn't expect Tempo to do so well right off the bat. Preseason.
I think that's fair. Like, a lot of big personalities, a lot of new talent on that team. Very, very big changers that you would think would take a little bit more time to kind of cohese,
integrate with each other. Right.
Yeah. So
okay,
kudos to them as well. But yeah, that was my takeaway.
All right. Well, let's see. If you guys don't have anything to add, we can jump into talking about the Western Clash.
Let's do it.
Sounds good to me. Western
Clash time. All right. So how do you want to do this, Bahgz?
Well, if you pull up the pick'em, we can kind of break it down.
Okay, I can do that. I'm going to use the actual results tab. Get that up real quick.
Do you need filler music?
No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm just I gotta get the right thing showing, and then we should be good. No. All right. All right. Well, let's go ahead and start going through it. I'm gonna go ahead and make this look better for the people on the stream right now, because it's looking a little bit off.
So essentially, in the very first matchup, we have Team Dignitas and Heroes Hearth. We can go through this one by one. I think it's pretty straightforward. I think Dig's probably going to win 2-0. Heroes Hearth has done well from NA. They have certainly done better than I expected them to, but I think beating Dig in the first round is too tall in order to ask from them, even if it's a best of 3 and they can pull out some cheese.
I challenge this, sir. I think they take a map off Dig. I think they surprised everybody. The class stash is real, and they take a map.
You think they cheese their way to victory?
I don't think they cheese. I think they just take a map.
I think the only way they take a map off of Dig is if they find a cheese.
Okay, fair enough.
2-1.
I do agree they lose that match. I think they can find a map.
The next quarterfinal matchup is Team 12 versus Method. I personally expect Method to win 2-1. I think Team 12 can pull off a map. I think Method's been playing better. I think that team is extremely talented. I think it's the second best team in EU, personally.
Oof. So
I think Team 12 winning a map is actually a huge victory, but I don't expect him to win the best of 3. And we should call it the cheese factor. I kind of expect the one map win to be via cheese, which they are very capable of doing and executing.
I think Method 2-0 is that.
I think this is going to be interesting because I might win some points early on. You know what? There's something I struggle with Method. I just don't. I don't know. I don't believe in them. I don't know what it is. I have no real reason other than I don't think they're as good as their record currently shows them to be. I've never been able to put my finger on it because we've discussed this a number of times, and there's just something about the team that I don't get along with, and I wish I knew what it was because it drives me crazy. I think Team 12 wins that game 2-1.
You're crazy.
So I probably am.
Crazy. So don't worry, everyone who's listening to the show right now. We will be keeping track of points, and LiQuid will be getting a big fat 0 for the second quarterfinal matchup. Don't you worry. All right. The third matchup is Tempo Storm versus Zealots. Now, in my opinion, if NA's got a shot of winning any of these quarterfinal matchups, this is it. It's Tempo Storm, the #1 North American seed, with loaded with talent, versus Zealots, a very solid EU team, but they're #4 seed. I'm picking Tempo to win 2-1. I think it's going to be very competitive. If I'm wrong about this, though, I'm not surprised. When I say Tempo is going to win, I'm leaning toward that like a 55-45. Like, it's extremely close.
I actually agree, but go ahead, Cav.
Well, okay, so in January of 2016, so last year, I said it would take 18 months before NA could take a series off of an EU team, which means I'm expecting it to happen at Midseason Brawl. So all of my predictions involve anytime an NA team is versus an EU team, the NA team is going to lose. And I'm sticking by my 2016 prediction because wouldn't that be like so beautifully prescient? But I actually think that Tempo Storm is gonna lose 2-1. And the biggest reason that I actually think that it's gonna work out that way is Freedom's already in EU. The other 3 teams bootcamped in NA and played each other.
Yeah.
But Freedom bootcamped in EU and played EU teams, which means all of the EU teams are familiar with where NA thinks the meta is, because Freedom's, scrimmed all the other NA teams. They brought all those thoughts with them. They're probably trying things. And that means all of the EU teams kind of had some idea of what the NA teams are going to bring, how they're playing the game, what they think. But the NA teams have much more limited information on the EU teams.
Let me ask you, I want to ask you, I want to expand on this because this is
Me too. So go ahead. All
right. So
yeah.
I'm going to take it back to BlizzCon last year, though, where we had EU teams scrimming with Korean teams before BlizzCon, if I remember correctly.
That is correct.
And
all 3 won.
And the NA team stayed in NA and scrimmed each other. And we struggled against Korean teams in general, and even EU teams. Mm-hmm. Do you, as a NA coach, would you prefer your team go and scrim in EU, or would you prefer all of NA stay isolated and keep their secrets to themselves, if you will?
I mean, if I wanted to win, I would bootcamp in EU.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get to. Yep.
You get better in any competitive anything by playing people who are better than you are, and then learning from them, learning from your mistakes, learning why you lost, and then going back and hitting it again and again and again. If you really want to be competitive, you have to lose.
Okay.
So my thinking is, and there's 2 schools of thoughts here. You want to get out of the quarterfinals and you want to prepare some strats against specific teams, and you want to watch their scrims and kind of see what they're doing and kind of just prepare the perfect draft to counter that. If you want to cheese your way through a best of 3, and I might catch some flame for this, you stay home in NA and you prepare that, and you'll get through the quarterfinals, but you are not going to win all the way through a tournament because you're not going to prepare 15 games of cheese. I'm sorry.
The problem with that line of thought, it's not actually a bad line of thought. The problem with that line of thought, though, is that EU has more competitive depth than NA, and there's been more cheeses in EU historically. All the big cheeses, with like possible exception of the Murky BlizzCon comp, actually came from EU first. And I'll give you guys a really good example of this. ADRD and his team have a cheese that they like to run last year. They practiced it a lot, and even in late 2016 on Towers of Doom, it was an Asmodean comp, where you simply delayed altars and delayed altars and delayed altars, never capped them, and just used Asmodean and other heroes to delay and push. And eventually you got the 6 cap, and the enemy team couldn't take it back because Asmodean's poke in the late game was so difficult to deal with. Tempo Storm tried this strat last year at Western Clash, and we got the first 40-0 Towers of Doom game in competitive play. Tempo didn't know that Fnatic had played against that strat dozens of times by people who had practiced it more.
That's
There
a
you
good
go.
point.
That's a really good point. So
if you're going to try and choose an EU team, good luck. Because you're going to have to think of something that they have never seen, and that is very difficult to do.
So essentially, the other thing I should have said is cheese might have been a strong word, but basically kind of like building your own meta to kind of throw them off their game. And that's only going to work in a short series, but it's not going to work throughout an entire tournament. I think if your goal is to win the entire tournament, you need to go to EU. You need to play against different competition, and maybe it hurts you in the short run, but I think the what you gain from it in the long run is more valuable. And if you want to even have a chance of winning the entire tournament, that's what you got to do. So that's just my 2 cents on that matter.
Okay. So I think we were up to Fnatic Freedom.
Yes. I actually think this is the hope, by the way. This is the best chance that NA has of getting through. I don't think it's Tempostorm versus Zealots. I think it's Freedom versus Fnatic.
Really
interesting. Okay.
I'm a huge Freedom fan. I think the changes they have made have been successful. I think the roster looks good. I think they work extremely hard. They have taken on players who put in a lot of work. Not to say that other players don't. I'm just, I don't know, using words.
He loves Freedom.
But I still don't see them beating Fnatic. I see Fnatic winning 2-1, and I think Freedom can win a game because the team mechanically is really strong still. And they have improved their macro game since the clash they went to in phase 2 last
Say that
year.
again? You think what?
They're a strong mechanically team. Freedom was known as a team fighting team for a long time, and now they have improved on their macro game a lot since they went to the clash and were out macroed.
But I'm confused, my man, because
why
you have him getting blanked here.
Oh, am I looking at Cavs picks?
You are.
I am. Let me switch. All right, Bags picks. Yes, I have Fnatic winning 2-0.
So I'm confused.
Well,
because you love Freedom. Love Freedom. And I'm confused.
Well, what I can say is I don't see them beating Fnatic. I can say that.
All right.
But kudos to Cav for having them picking up a map.
I do too. So, all right. Okay. So, I mean, those are the first round picks and the first round matches. We obviously we've gone through, we've picked all the way through so that we can see who picked and predicted correctly between us. I hear you have a wager you want to put down on this, though. Is that correct?
Well, I was going to wait until we had selected our champion, but
well, we can do that if you want to do that. That's fine.
Yeah, we'll wait for now.
Okay. All right.
But Cav, can you elaborate a little further as to why you think Freedom might have the most competitive first set in the quarterfinals?
The number one thing that causes NA teams to lose when they go to their regions is getting out macroed. Our macro is just very poor. We don't respect how much of the game comes down to soaking lanes, which means that on average, the EU offlaners are just so much better at catching soak, and more of the decision making is focused around catching soak. Tempo has made good strides at this in the last year, and I think Psalm in particular has become really, really aware of it, and so is Cattle, and obviously as a shot caller and drafter, that's a big impact for them. But Freedom is probably the best macro team in North America right now, so I don't think they're going to lose to macro, which means they have a chance of just winning because of team fighting. Team fighting is something that happens when your macro is even. If your macro is imbalanced, people just don't fight and win by macro. It's just kind of how the game works at a really high level of play. And the fact that Freedom is bootcamping in EU and is practicing against EU teams to shore up that weakness is going to make a massive difference for them.
Okay.
All right, so with those picks, I want to move on to the losers round, and then we'll dive into the semifinals. So, and we'll move this a little quicker because I know we're chewing up a lot of time here. But so, and losers, we'll I guess
we all disagree though. Yeah, that's why I was gonna stop.
They're gonna defer. So you know what? We'll skip ahead then to the the champion. I've got Dignitas beating Method 4-2. LiQuiuD, you've got...
I've got Fnatic beating Dig
4-2.
4-2.
And Cav, you've got...
I have Dignitas beating Method 4-1.
So Cav and I both agree that Method's going to be the second place team.
I want to go back a little bit though, because not only do I have Fnatic beating Dig, I have Fnatic beating Dig in the winners final and the grand final, because that's how much I believe in Fnatic.
No chance.
I see that.
It's just no chance.
There probably isn't, but
You've got a gut feeling?
No, I'm looking for points, man. When Fnatic gave up Wubby, well, they didn't give up Wubby. We had that conversation. When Wubby moved off,
well, he traded.
Right.
At least that's the
well,
article.
it wasn't even like straight traded, because it was just too. It looked that way, but it wasn't like this for that. We had that conversation. I don't remember with who, but they definitely were weaker. Fnatic is weaker, but I feel like they're starting to find their stride. And I'm looking for the points. If we pick the same, I can't beat you, right? We've had that conversation. I think there's a chance. I've probably just thrown away my winners final and my grand finals final, honestly. But I don't know. I keep holding out hope that Fnatic will get it together. You know, much like you in KSV Black, Bahgz.
All right, fair. I think that's fair. We can compromise on that. With that being said, though, I wanted to make a little wager with you. Now, if I lose, if Fnatic wins...
Wait. No, is this loss like total points? Like I get more points than you?
Okay. Let's do it this way.
Okay.
I don't own a Dignitas or a Fnatic jersey. Do you own a Fnatic or a Dignitas jersey?
I own neither of them.
Okay, so assuming an EU team that is sponsored will win the Western Clash, assuming.
Yep.
I think we can all fairly say that EU is probably going to win it, and it's probably going to be one of the sponsor teams.
Yes.
Assuming that happens, the loser, the man with the least amount of points coming from his bracket, has to buy the champions jersey to support that team.
For himself or for the other person?
I mean, I was going to say for himself and have to wear it on the show, but...
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Done. I can do that. So if you win points and Dig wins, I have to buy a Dig jersey for myself.
Correct.
And wear it when I get it.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Handshake.
Done.
Good.
All right.
There you have it. Let's
You ready to jump through some amateur stuff?
Yeah, let's move on to the amateur scene, which has been insane. I haven't
And the Mastermind Storm is awaiting them. Welcome to the paint train.
Kill the boss! Can they do it? It's too much damage for me! And that's GG!
All right, and we're back. Gonna go over some amateur stuff. NA Open Division. Let's start with NA Open Division. Cup number 4 did finish last week. We did see EID take on Team Nightcare. Team Nightcare winning that game 2-1. And then we also saw XD taking on Rouge Eto. Sorry. And XD ended up winning that game as well. That was a 2-0. Excuse me. Setting up a third place match between EID and Rouge Eto. EID, of course, winning that game 2-0. Also setting up a finals of XD versus Team Nightcare. XD winning 2-1 against Team Nightcare. NA Open's actually been really good lately. Better than last year. Like definitely more competitive.
More parity. Parity.
Yeah, at the top.
Like I was trying to say before the bumper cut me off was both EU and NA Open divisions. Like last year, we consistently, it was like you know, it was consistently the leftovers, or it was consistently zealots. There were or Polska Pamieta, or you know, or Heroes Hearth, or important support, or consistently the same top 3, top 4, and we're kind of seeing that to a degree, but it's not, if that makes sense. You could make an argument that the top 8 teams in both regions and open division are just constantly waffling, and it's just extremely competitive. Like I'm jumping ahead here, but look at this week's as an example. XD and SMV, teams that had made it to each and every single semifinal, and at least one of those participating in the finals of the first 4 cups, not in the semifinals at all this week. And those are teams filled with a bunch of former pros from last season.
Well, XD ceased to exist, so I don't know if that counts.
Oh,
XD folded, and what's interesting is SMV made changes, haven't made it to a semi since.
Yeah, they lost Prismat in exchange for Talking Trees. Tiger swapped back from offlaner to support, and they changed one of their role, or one other person, I don't know.
Yeah.
XD lost 2 of its players to the new EID, I think.
Yes.
And then Jin just gave up on life. His Twitter is like, go read his Twitter. It's like really sad.
Please don't. Nobody should read Jin's Twitter right now. It's a disaster. I feel really bad for him.
Yeah, like XD would have easily, I think, made it to top 2. I don't know if they would have made it through the Crucible. LFM's improving a lot. And I do think LFM is going to be like the team that's going to be at the bottom. So it's just a rough situation for him, especially because it's very hard at this point in the season to acquire enough points.
At this point, like losing points and trying to start over, there's only 2 cups left. You have to win both cups. I think if you finish second, you'll still qualify. It'll be close. If you finish second in both cups, you might make the playoffs. I think a first and a second would guarantee you a playoff spot at this point. But, you know, working that out, okay, you have 3 weeks to get a first and a second. Go. Right? It's difficult to do. This week, we do have EID versus Trait Value. And that starts at 9, I believe. I don't know. Argy, you're in chat. Who's up first? Is it EID Trait Value or Team Nightcare versus Rouge at O? If you can tell us. But one of those games starts at 9 o'clock tonight on the Blizz Heroes channel. The other one will be immediately after, and then third place will run on the Heroes Hype channel, while the grand finals is on the Blizz Heroes channel. And it looks like EID versus Trait Value will be the first game tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern on the Blizz Heroes channel. So check that out. And then over in EU, Team Singularity fought their way back to their first place finish again this week. They'd been out of first place for, I think, the last 2 or 3 cups. But they're back.
I think it was the last 2 cups.
I think it was 2, yeah.
They've won 3 of the 5, I think.
Singularity winning 2-0 against Worst Positioning in the first semifinal, and Granite Gaming winning 2-0 against the Undergods, setting up a Worst Positioning versus the Undergods third place match, which Worst Positioning did take 2-0, and Singularity beating Granite Gaming 2-0 in the finals, which was that was a good game too. I watched that. Singularity looked really good this week. I don't know what they did differently, but they looked way better this week than they have in the last 2 weeks. So whatever they did is clearly working for them.
But to me, like, they mostly cleaned up their drafting. I actually do watch some of those games, and their drafting was much better this week.
And that may be all it was. I watched the games. I just did not. I didn't sit down to try and figure out what changed, but that's probably the best thing to. Yeah, I can agree with that. I don't know why I'm questioning that. Like, this is your job, and I just talk about this stuff. So, yes, you are correct, man. All right, moving on. Heroes of the Norm, we do have regional play continuing this week. Games are on tomorrow night. Blizz Heroes channel there as well. Haloran, The Source, Invernum, and I don't know if it's Dunk Train this week or somebody else, because it is a new week. It may still be Dunk Train, but check those out. Those are also good games. I really, really appreciate the fact that everything's on the Blizz Heroes channel now. It makes
it really easy to keep track of.
Right? You're just like, oh, bam, Blizz Heroes. Look, something's on. I could go turn Twitch on again. So, yeah, definitely check those out. Some great games going on right now. and they deserve to be watched by all of the people that like HGC. All right, Bahgz, did I miss anything?
I think that covered everything I had written down. Oh, sorry. Yes, we did miss one thing because I didn't throw it in the notes. I saw it on Twitter, and then someone mentioned it in Twitch chat just now. LiQuiuD will be third guy come
Western
Clash. Yes, come Clash.
Oh, wait, really? That explains why he's not on tonight.
Yes.
Okay then. And yes, all right.
I found out about this yesterday because Blizzard apparently asked him yesterday, by the way.
Really?
So it's a little bit of a crimp in our scrim schedule.
Yeah, just a little bit, I'm sure. Wow. Okay, then.
And I've been scrambling to fix it since then. We're going to be actually scrimming with a sub for a few days this week. But yeah, LiQuiuD will be the pro analyst for Western Clash.
That's awesome. I got to ask this question because Lord Boo really wants it asked. What is the secret to making a perfect chocolate cake?
It depends on what you're trying to do with it. There's lots of, so if you want to make like a molten chocolate cake, which a lot like has liquid chocolate in the middle, and as you cut into it, it sort of oozes across the plate. It's a very different thing than if you just want to make like a really nice cake. The biggest thing with cake is you don't want them to be dry, right? So you have to have enough protein, usually from eggs, where the structure is maintained, but you want them to be light and fluffy, so you don't want to overwork the batter or you'll get too much gluten, which is chewy, which is why I use cake flour, which is lower in protein. And I think that chocolate is really good when it's slightly bitter, and then it's complemented by sweetness, so you get some contrast in the flavors. Yeah. The best way to do that is usually to make sure you're messing around with the amount of dairy you're using, so you get like a creamy feeling. And there's a bit of bitterness at the back end for a taste, so it doesn't feel too rich. And like you can look up really good chocolate cake recipes by many famous patisserie chefs. I would stick to those. Like I would stick to tested recipes. The thing about recipes by professional chefs is they've tested them a lot. They've made literally thousands of them before that goes in a book. So get one of those recipes, follow that recipe. If it doesn't work, like go ask on a cooking forum, why doesn't it work the way that I thought it would? Did you do something wrong with the technique? The biggest thing that I've found that people do wrong with cooking, especially baking, is they don't respect the process enough. For instance, when it says to cream butter, which is literally just you put butter in a mixer and put sugar on top of it, you want to wait till it lightens in color. People do that for like 30, 40 seconds. Most professional pastry chefs that I've talked to do it for like 5 to 8 minutes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
So really
I'm in the 30-second crowd there. So
really respect each individual. Well, see, here's what happens when you're creaming butter. The sugar cuts into the butter and creates lots of little air bubbles. And so that light, fluffy feeling you get from cake comes from the creaming process. That's where the initial structure comes from. It's going to later result in a really fluffy cake. So if you only do it for 30 seconds, your cake's going to be slightly denser. If you do it for 8 minutes, your cake's going to be very light and fluffy.
Right.
What's the final texture you're looking for? That determines how long you do it for. So respect every step of the process, even if it's not just the ingredients, but respect every step of the process when you're mixing your batter.
Cool. Okay. Awesome. There you go, Lord Boo. Asked and answered. All right, with that, we're going to sign off, I think. I think we're going to end it here. Like, how do you end on anything higher than how to make a great cake?
You can't.
No, you can't.
That was the highest of high notes.
Absolutely. So thank you all for listening to Trollin HGC, a weekly podcast about Heroes of the Storm Esports, a member of the Trolls.gg Entertainment Network. We stream live on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/TrollsGG, every week on Tuesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. CavalierGuest, where's the best place for people to find you? And do you have any shout outs you want to give?
People can find me at twitch.tv/CavalierGuest. That's the best place. I also run a Discord called the Nexus Schoolhouse, where we have a channel for discussing HGC live as the matches are happening. It has a channel for post-show questions. I do a pro post-show every Monday discussing what's happening in the pro scene. If people have questions about what happened during the week, they can post them there and they'll get answered on Monday. And I'm there regularly too. There's lots of discussions, lots of theory crafting about the game. Lots of top amateurs from EU in particular hang out there, just because a lot of my audience base is EU. I don't know why. And so that's I'm always there. That's where I'll have comms. I guess I don't have comms for viewer games there anymore because comms are in game, but that's the best place to find me. And I want to give a shout out to all the content creators for Heroes of the Storm, because when I started creating content, it felt like there was no one creating content. And then I cast Creators of the Storm this last weekend, and there were so many different people there who had done podcasts and done other things, and it was just such a nice touchstone for me to get back in touch with some of the people from the community.
Awesome. And thank you for casting that. It was a fun event. I love doing that. As much as it's a lot of work, I love doing that. I can't wait to do the next one.
Especially when your podcast wins the whole thing.
Right? You got to love it when your podcast wins the thing, right? All right, Bahgz, where can people find you?
Guys, you can follow me on Twitter at Bahgz HGC. I tweet out pictures of my dog, esports stuff. You can also watch me stream on twitch.tv/Bahgz. I'll be streaming this weekend as well. If you enjoyed tonight's show or are interested in Blizzard's other esports offerings, consider subscribing to the Weekly Blizz, where my buddy Guaz and I cover all of Blizzard esports and can be found on all podcast sources. That is it. LiQuiuD, where can people follow you?
The best place to follow me is on Twitter at LiQuiuDGG. That's LiQiuDGG. Tweet whenever I'm about to do anything most times. Apparently I forgot tonight, but follow me there. That's your best bet. Thank you, CavalierGuest, for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it. Thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. If you enjoy the show, you can support us in a number of ways. That includes Patreon at patreon.com/TrollsGG. Follow us on Twitter at Trollin HGC for show announcements and Heroes of the Storm esports news. You can subscribe to our show on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and all the other podcast sources. Give us a rating, send us feedback. We definitely read all of that, and we'd like to both acknowledge you as a listener for giving us feedback and try to improve things that we can do better. If you need to get in touch with us, you can hit us up on Twitter. DMs are open. That's at Trollin HGC. Or you can email us, trollin@trolls.gg. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you in the Nexus.
Peace out.